Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of Divine Independence. Coming to you today with more code adjustments. And the reason I'm coming to you with all of these recently is because I'm about to make this big push with City Council to refer it over to the Planning and Zoning Board so that we can hopefully see some of these changes actually implemented. And now we're looking 3 to 6 months to get any of this stuff resolved. Because first we have to take it to the council, then we have to get a motion on the council to actually submit this or some of these requests over to the Planning and Zoning Committee. And then the Planning and Zoning Committee has to have a meeting and they have to vote on them individually because they're going to have to make a whole bunch of changes to the zoning ordinance if it makes it that far. And then there's going to be all kinds of debate within that. And I'm going to figure out when that is because they do not advertise that stuff at all. It's if you're paying attention close to the city website, you'll see it posted there, but that's about it. So then they talk about it. Hopefully I can be present for that and make some statements there, provide some sources, and hopefully change some minds because let's face it, these folks want stuff to say exactly the way it is forever, long after they're dead and gone. And so it's trying to convince them that there's a reason to change the future. We don't need to stay exactly the same forever. And then after they get their vote, then they send it back to city council. Then the city votes to approve it. So, like I said, this is at least a 3-month process, probably closer to 6 months, just because the speed of government is incredibly slow. Now, the objective I'm personally hoping to get from this, the personal benefit I hope to get from this, I should say, is being able to run chicken and ducks on my property. 12 acres, I want to run some birds. And the crazy idea that I can only have 10 domestic fowl is just mind-blowing. 12 acres, I don't get it. Why would you even allow 12 acres to exist in the city if you can only have 10 domestic fowl? Yep, again, doesn't make sense whatsoever. And then if that doesn't work, I'll apply for a variance. And sorry for everybody else. If you care that much, you'll come out and support. If not, then sucks to suck. And this is really what it boils down to, though, is apathy. If you don't care enough, if you can't come out and really make some noise, then I guess you don't care that much. And that's what we're seeing. That's what we saw with the tax increase, property taxes. There were four of us that came out, 5 of us actually. There was one other, Taylor, I forget her full name, and 4 of us at the actual budget planning meeting, and then there were 2 of us at the actual city council meeting for this stuff. And just folks just don't show up. So, but they love getting on Facebook to complain. So if you're one of those people, I encourage you, I implore you, please come out and do that complaining to the city council member's face. That's what changes their mind. Hearing people complain on Facebook, well, people that complain on Facebook don't actually go out and vote. So their opinions don't really matter. Facts. You can say, well, they work for us. Well, do they? They only work for you if you demand that they act in your best interests. And a lot of times it's not that they're trying to be buttholes. I know a lot of them. None of them are trying to be buttholes. It's the end of the day, who do they hear the most from? Those greasy wheels, like myself. Make a whole lot of noise and say, well, I know for a fact there's some of my constituency that feels this way. And I know for a fact that that part of my constituency will vote. They will support me if I run. They won't support me if I don't back this sort of legislation, though. And there are some things where, yeah, I hear them, but this isn't going to completely turn them off. And they kind of get an idea from talking to me, a squeaky wheel. How bad is this going to be if I don't back this? And there's also that point there of, well, don't back me then. I'm sure everybody else will. I'm sure I can convince enough other people that I'm worth voting for again. And it's just the way it works. There's nothing wrong with that either. There's a lot of compromise you have to be willing to do when you're dealing with thousands of people's interests all in one place. At the end of the day, no one person, no one government body knows better than all the people as a whole. But most people are completely apathetic and completely unwilling to actually do anything for themselves. They want to call the government to do things, to fix things for them. That being said, what is it with the city of Devine, but really just South Texas as a whole? Everyone just lets their dog out for a morning walk in the morning. Unfortunately, that dog's not on a leash and just kind of strolls around. And this is most common on the weekends, I guess, because animal control's not working. But man, this is just crazy. We should be increasing the fines for loose dogs. And hey, it happens from time to time. I get it. I really do. my dog got out. This was last week, actually, because I had a contractor here who was doing some work and left the freaking gate open. Thanks, bud. Thanks. That one, I told him I was irritated, but I mean, it's only $10. But honestly, I think if the dog catcher has to come and get it, though, city needs to be recouping a little bit more money than that. So I think it should boost up to at least 20 or $40. That's, I mean, hey, I'm glad I don't have to pay a whole bunch more, but also my dogs don't ever get out. That was the first time that happened. Had a dog that climbed the fence. Well, that dog found a new home. Couldn't have that around here, but yeah, my dogs aren't getting out all the time. It was just the one dog, the one day last week when the contractor left the gate open, and I think the city needs to charge more because the number of people that just let their dogs out to run all the time is insane. Every single day I'm driving around, there's at least one, if not three dogs just out for their morning trot. Someone just opens up the front door and lets them go. I was talking to Debbie Randall about this. She's saying when she was a kid, then one of the neighbors would let their dog out the front door every single morning. Had a great big back fenced yard. But they'd let them out the front yard, or out the front door rather, and they'd go steal all the neighbors' shoes and everything out of everyone's yard and chew it up and let it on that front door. So you know where you had to go to get your shoes back as well because, well, that dog always took it home. Stuff's just, people just aren't courteous. And so there comes a certain point where, well, I guess they want the government to come in and make things go away, fix problems. I'm a big fan of let me talk to this neighbor first. If they don't want to talk, well, maybe I have to go over with a crowbar. I don't know. Point being there, asking for government's help should be the absolute last thing anyone does. But until folks get involved, it's just going to be just do what they think is best. And again, I don't think any of them are bad people trying to do bad things. Just I don't agree with a lot of the decisions they make, but I'm one person. Now, I don't know if you've heard, but City Council is supposed to get back to live streaming. This is going to be interesting. Reason being, they can't get the audio to work to begin with. That for some reason, they're really insistent on having one of the speakers pointed directly at them and one of the speakers pointed directly at the crowd. But when you're pointing the speaker toward the microphones, you're going to get a ton of feedback and you get all that loud whistling. And they just haven't really grasped this yet. I've tried mentioning it a few times, but I don't know. I don't. There's a certain point. There's a threshold. I figure, not my not my swimming pool. I should probably stay out of it. And yeah, so now what that has resulted in is nobody will use a microphone. And I mean, Corey, the mayor, he'll use it pretty consistently. Angela will sometimes use it, but most people they won't use the microphones. You can't hear anything they're saying. Kathy, my district representative, is the same way. Refuses to use it. Drives me nuts because she's a very, very soft talker. So I'd never have any idea what she's saying, which that's a little concerning as well because I kind of want to know what she's saying. I only know how she's voting about half the time because of that. Anyway, we'll see how it goes. I suspect it'll just be a video stream where we can't hear anything. But upside, I hope it will eventually get better. And someone will actually watch that video and say, hey, I need you to talk louder or something to that effect, and maybe contact their councilman then as well. It's actually really, really simple here in Devine. It's District 2, District 1, District 5, whatever your district is. So district, for me, it's District 4 at cityofdevine.org. Super simple. Contact your representative. If you ask them, they'll even give you their personal email address a lot of times. They'll even tell you where they live sometimes. Folks want to hear from you, the constituency. Now, moving on to things. Enough of this lecturing. Devine Fall Festival starting 4 through 6 November. This kind of stuff's awesome for small towns. I like it. It's like the one day of the year the government just gets out of the way and says, go ahead, do cool stuff. Everyone come out, support, let's have fun. Let's make the town nice. Let's make it really fun. And I know everyone, you can sell beer on the street. You can have street food. You can have all kinds of stuff out there. The rest of the year, it's just boring because there are like 4 shops. People just kind of dart from their house to whatever store they're trying to go to and then back into their house. You actually have this little carnival out there, which why can't we have this 2 or 3 times a year? Actually, you have people selling beer out there. Well, why can't we have that every weekend? Give me a reason to come out instead of just this sad VFW. which, let's be honest, nobody wants to go inside of that thing. The only time we get people over there is whenever we have Food Truck Fridays, which are going really well, and we have it outside. Unfortunately, President there, Jesse Rodriguez, he decided that the vendors are not allowed to sell sodas or water even, because that's how we make our money. Look, man, no one's spending $2 on a Coke or a bottle of water. So why don't you just let them sell it? Also, my kids aren't going inside that freaking VFW for a Coke or a water. So you're not making the money. We just bring our own water bottles now, and you're still losing out on that revenue. And guess what? Whenever they run out of water, we go home. I stop buying beers. And so now you got 2 beers out of me instead of 3. Now you're losing more money. So it's just stuff like that. It doesn't make sense. And it's folks with this idea that it's a small pie, the pie can't grow. So if I let you have some of my pie, now I have less pie. They cannot possibly conceptualize that we always just make the pie bigger. If we work together, the pie gets bigger and you can have some, but I still get a bunch too. And in fact, by letting you in, the pie gets bigger and I actually get more. Though I have to share more of the pie, my slice gets bigger because it is a significantly larger pie. Now, I want to lead off here with some of the code recommendations I'm about to make. We've got just general concerns that surround the arbitrary and subjective measures that are in place across all the codes and ordinances and such. But it enables the inequitable application of regulation. So that is to say, again, I've mentioned it before, but we've got folks up there in District 5 who they want everything to look like an HOA. And so they will use that regulation against anyone they don't like. There are roosters all over the city of Devine, yet roosters are banned. Yeah, well, if you piss somebody off, they're going to call code enforcement and they're going to turn you in for having a rooster. But it's 100% complaint driven. So you just have to hope nobody gets mad at you. Otherwise, do whatever you want. There are plenty of abandoned houses that need to be torn down or auctioned off or something. Nothing. The city just doesn't want to enforce it at that point because, well, they're old, they're in a nursing home. Then it needs to be sold, period. There's a nice little brick house right down the street from me. I would love to get a hold of that and renovate it and sell it or rent it or something because it's a nice little house. It could really clean up the block. There are 3 houses across the street from me that just in complete disrepair. One's being rented out, but it needs renovated. The other one, there was a fire or something a few years ago. No, I'm not 100% sure on it, but it's in complete disrepair. There's not even a roof on it. There's a front on it. That's about it. Tear it down, sell it, do something, fix it. Don't make it a dump. So, and that's a lot of the houses around here. They're just in complete disrepair. So you have to follow through and actually make them do something. But that's where we're at. Now, so the first code point on here, which is I did a lot of the code last week, but this week I'm focusing on animals and domestic livestock, that sort of thing. So this is 14-5 section or CD 14:5, but it's section 14-4. And so my request there is to edit it to only include large animals such as cattle and horses, which require large-scale land. Basically, they want you to have a minimum of 1 acre before you can have any animals. And you could get some animals on a smaller chunk here. I'm not 100% sure, though. I don't know how you best manage that because, well, let me go through it here. Livestock shall be kept on a parcel of land that is equipped with enough mulch, wood shavings, or other carbon sources adequate to control odor and dust. And so if we keep enough mulch on a piece of land, even after your horses or cows or whatever eat down to just nothing, eat down to dirt, there's nothing left to survive. It just turns into dirt and dust. And then nobody likes that because that's just dirt blowing all over everybody else's property. But if you keep enough of that straw down or mulch or something, well, then you mitigate that a lot. And now you do have to feed a lot of hay, but that's your prerogative. Now in here, I do address other things there. You don't want someone just starving their animals. But that addresses the smell. Nobody wants a stinky farm. There's someone has pigs about 2 blocks from me. I don't smell it, fortunately, but you could because they have quite a few pigs. But we have to address some of those things. We also have to think about the lower income folks who maybe just want to raise something in their backyard and they manage to get enough forage for them. They manage to find hay or something like that elsewhere. but they want something in their backyard. And that'll give them the opportunity. They don't have to have 10 acres to have animals. They can just have their little quarter-acre lot in the suburbs and take care of business. They just have to haul in some hay. But that allows them that kind of sustainability. And that's the thing we need to help folks out with, especially with these supply chain issues. You can't tell me that I'm not allowed to have animals when you can't guarantee that I'm going to be able to get food from the grocery store in another 6 months. You can't do it. It's unethical. Now, that addresses the smell, and the city has a free mulch pile. It's actually the county now. The city used to have it. Now it's the county at the Precinct 4 headquarters there, annex rather, off of West Hondo. And that minimizes the cost for the low-income folks as well. So if they can't afford to have enough forage or whatever the case may be, they can't bring in straw, just go pick up some mulch from the county annex. Too easy. You can fit that in the back of a car. Just take you a few trips. Now, number 2 here, edit the sub-bullets. Many people feed grain rather than grazing animals, and that requires considerably less space. I don't feed grain. My chickens, obviously, but the sheep, no, they just eat grass. They eat a little bit of hay whenever it's too dry and there's just nothing left because I don't have irrigation. There's no well here. But point being, a lot of people feed grain, so they don't need that much space. They feed a bale of hay and some grain, and that's it. So with that, a horse, cattle, or other large livestock require a minimum of 4,500 square feet if grain fed, and obviously hay as well. If the animals are fed forage, a minimum of 1.5 acres are required. And I actually cited the source on here, and I'll be passing that over to the city as well, but that's horses.extension.org / how much land do I need for a horse? And each word separated by a dash. But if you're interested, it'll also be in the show notes, so feel free to check that out. That addresses the dust, but it still enables those folks that are interested to have animals, whatever animals they desire, really. If you don't have a freaking cow on a little 1/4 of an acre backyard, feel free, do it. Any animal with a body condition score of 2 or below is prohibited without a documented remedy plan with a completion date in under 3 months. And I've got the oklahomastate.edu. I got a whole thing there on body condition scoring for cows. All animals are basically the same. If you can see their ribs sticking out, then you got to get rid of that animal. And the reason for this is not to say that we're trying to persecute anyone, but we don't want people purposely starving their animals. Sometimes you just have an old animal. In that case, of being a documented plan from a veterinarian, it's not getting any fatter, it's just old. So I've got one sheep like that. It's just nothing, no matter what I do. I treated her for worms just to make sure her eyes were a little bit light in color, but no, eyes are looking good now. She just won't put on weight. She'll be getting called here at some point, but what are you going to do? That sheep's going down the road. But point being, we don't want folks starving their animals. So my animals have plenty to eat, and that's about all I can do there. Not starving them though. And we just don't want folks starving it. We also don't want to create the image for all the HOAers. I don't want to create the image here where there are sickly animals degrading the perception of the city. So if we have nice looking farm areas, nice looking backyard homestead areas, that actually increases the value of property rather than decreasing it. If it looks like a dump, you're hurting property values, and that's when you get folks real upset. Another thing that we need to remove here is number 3, remove the 50-foot boundary line. So you're not allowed to graze animals within 50 feet of any neighboring property or any resident that is not that of the homeowner. So if I can't graze an animal within 50 feet of your house, but my setback, that's the amount of land between the side of my house and my property line, is 5 feet. So that's 10 feet between my house and your house at a minimum. And behind my house is 15 feet. In front of my house is 35 feet. That's usually a road. So basically all I can do then is graze animals in a center point of my front yard. That's kind of crazy. How about we just remove that and make that property line? No animal shall graze or be permitted to graze outside of a residence or a landowner's property. Period. Unless there's written consent from the other owner. And the importance there is, hey, my neighbor actually lets me graze about 4 acres he owns behind his house. That is amazing. But it gets within 50, it might be roughly 50 feet of his house. Point being, that's just where his field was, and he used to have cows there. He doesn't have them anymore, so he lets me graze them. It'd be crazy for me to not be allowed to graze the animals there because it's, even though he lets me. So let's make sure we're writing that correctly to ensure that stuff that makes sense is still allowed. Domestic fowl, and this is where I'm trying to get them completely away from the minimum or maximum of 10 domestic fowl, but instead rewrite the whole thing to say domestic fowl must have a minimum of 1.5 square feet of housing space, a documented manure management plan. That is, for me, that'll just be moving through the field. What manure? The grass gets it all. It's just turning into fertilizer right away. And the biggest thing for that one is you're not just leaving them sit in this moonscape and it's going to smell terrible all the time. Figure it out. You can't have it smell. And I'm fully in favor of that one because they stink. Just like pigs. They smell terrible. You don't want that. So you have to figure out what you're going to do with that. Domestic fowl making significant noise, to include roosters and peacocks, will be permitted with the written consent of adjacent neighbors. So if you don't want to hear it next door, then I guess you're not going to be given written consent. And that's just to make sure that everyone's being a good neighbor in a documented fashion. And so if animal control comes by and you can't show me your signed contract or a signed affidavit of your neighbor saying I consent to having this bird next to me, and you have the right to withdraw that consent at any time, that's just the way it goes. You have to be a good neighbor. That's just like dogs barking. People have dogs that literally never stop barking. It drives me nuts. Mine get barking at night sometimes as well, though. People are doing weird stuff on the street, and the dogs just go nuts over it. So there's a balance there. I got a neighbor who's got boxers, and ooh, boy, those things are always barking. So it's a balance. Next one I've got on here: fowl will be contained so as to avoid the creation of a nuisance. In other words, nobody wants chickens crapping all over their porch. So keep your chickens contained. And there's been a peacock running through my field several times, just obnoxious because of the noise it makes. But I'm not super upset about it. It's just kind of annoying whenever it's making those loud noises. But keep your stuff contained. If I had something out there I didn't want to destroy, I'd have been real upset. Fowl will have a minimum of 3 square feet of open outdoor access. So you can't keep them in some tiny little cage or something like that. You have to be humane with it. Outdoor areas will have adequate carbon material to mitigate odor, or space will be moved daily to ensure odor does not become a nuisance. And so this is where I go to document essentially sustainable agriculture. You don't have to have some super fancy thing. You just have to have a little cage to drag along each day. And that way you don't get the smell. They're still getting fresh grass. You're keeping disease down, all that stuff. And you're sequestering carbon. Everyone loves to talk about that. Any nuisance identified and brought to the owner's attention must be brought into compliance within 7 business days. Currently, again, I've mentioned it before, there's a $2,000 per day fine for certain ordinance. If you break an ordinance, it's $2,000 per time you're warned for that ordinance being broken. So that's theoretically $2,000 a day. That's crazy. Just nope. Pump the brakes on that one. Give it at least a week, and at that point, we can use some discretion. 14-6, add something here. No uncontrolled domesticated cats or dogs are permitted and must be reported to animal control within 3 days or face penalty of $10 per day per uncontrolled animal. The objective behind me pushing this one is we've got some crazy cat people around here, some crazy dog people around here. Those aren't my dogs. Those aren't my cats. Well, then get rid of them. Call animal control and have them gone. So I've got 30, 40 cats running all over the place, crapping and peeing on all the neighbors' houses. Nobody wants that. I don't want your cat walking across the hood of my car. Control it. Because at present there is a limit of, I think it's 3 cats and 5 dogs per residence. That seems like a pretty fair limit there. I'm not even touching that one because we don't need a kennel around here. We don't need a humane society. Nobody wants to hear all that noise. So that's just the sort of stuff we need to contemplate and address. And yeah, I just want all the feral cats taken care of. I'm sick of it. Next one here: implement horizontal mixed-use zoning across the city. Bottom line, if you want to start a business in your garage, you should be able to start a business in your garage. You should be able to have a sign out front. You should be able to serve people food or whatever you can get away with within the state laws. And yeah, the state government really shouldn't be affecting anything at the county and city level, but here we are. at least get the city to ease up on these restrictions so we can make it more of a community instead of just a bunch of houses with some sort of businesses in an area. This isn't the 20s. Even in the 20s, that's not how stuff worked. It's just this controlling nature and wanting everything to leave it to Beaverland. It just doesn't make sense. We have to stop this stuff. The last recommendation I'm making is to remove minimum lot size requirements. It doesn't make sense. If you can get a tiny house on a little chunk of land, do it. And this is where I'm really pushing here with all these regulation changes. We are in the United States, I would say we're like 89, 1990 USSR. We're just teetering on total collapse. If we can't build some sustainability in here and allow folks to be a little bit more flexible in how they run their lives, if you need to live in a little shed, just make it look nice. Don't make it a dump. We don't want to live in a dump. If you need to live in a tiny house, though, I mean, that's all you can afford. You can get maybe a quarter acre and make the whole back a little homestead. You can generate the kind of food that is needed to offset whatever kind of living you can make. We have to be planning for a future where our ability to generate revenue is dramatically reduced. So we're really losing out on a lot of stuff here, and you're starting to see it. If you're not seeing it yet, I think you are delusional or you're really living in a fantasy world. I mean, go into the store, there's a lot of stuff. A lot of times you just can't find stuff. And so we have to think ahead for that future. And now, with any luck, I'm completely wrong. And we just recover and get right back to the way things were 2 years ago. I don't see that happening, though. The economy is just barely hanging on here. So, again, the objective behind all this stuff is to make a more sustainable town, move some more folks out here, create a more resilient community by bringing just a more diverse type of folks out here. Everyone in Devine doesn't need to be from Devine. And this is the way folks need to be thinking in every small town across the world. We don't want people just from our little town. We want folks from outside with different opinions who have seen different things. That's not to say I want to turn into a communist paradise like San Francisco. I don't know that I want a bunch of Californians moving here and spreading their wonderful socialist agenda. But we have to be open to some differing philosophies. And culture down here, it's pretty socialist as it is. You talk to anybody around that golf course, they don't understand basic political philosophy, but hey, we need to keep funding this golf course. Man, they love that golf course. They love it. Yet that's taking from the masses to subsidize this singular state-run thing. The golf course is state-run. It's city-run. So you're basically a socialist. Actually, you are a socialist because you're taking money from people to subsidize your one little thing that you think is making life so much better. In reality, it's self-interest. They want their property values to continue, either maintain or continue to go up by being near a golf course, which is honestly mediocre with the patchy grass and the gopher holes. That's not a top-notch golf course in my opinion, but who am I? Anyway, folks, that's all I got for today. I don't want to drag it on too long. Going almost 30 minutes now. You can always find me on Float, Josh R. You can find me on YouTube, Divine Independence, Library on Odyssey, Divine Independence. And if you're at all thinking about getting into cryptocurrency, which I'm going to keep harping on this one, my 2 recommendations for cryptocurrency: buy Bitcoin, buy Pirate Chain. Bitcoin that is the future of money. Pirate Chain is the present and the future of private money. So if you need to be able to spend and you just don't want anyone in your business, has nothing to do with you having something to hide. It matters that it's no one's business. Privacy is king. Get on Pirate Chain. If you need some help, let me know. I'll happily help you out. If you're on an iPhone, we'll help you get it on your computer. If you've got an Android, I can get you a wallet set up in under 10 minutes. It's that easy. And we can buy, sell, trade, whatever we want, but it's all enabled with this digital money that you can turn into cash if you need to. But generally speaking, we're trying to build this offline economy, and that's how we do it. Now, check out the links I've got in the show notes here. We've got CoinMarketCap, we've got Pirate Chain, we've got CoinEx and Coinbase, 2 great places for all your trading if you want to really get into crypto. CityDivine.org. I've got the city map on here, and take it easy.